It's been a great recruiting week for Texas already. Is it about to get even better? Another five-star is trending our way. We'll talk about it on today's episode of Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You were locked on to the Texas Longhorns. I'm your host, BK Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin local, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. Please like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and remember to leave a comment. That's one of the fastest ways to help us grow right here on Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. We've got more recap from SEC Media Days here in Atlanta, more thoughts from Steve Sarkisian, and a couple of thoughts from myself from things that I've gathered this week in the ATL. But first, a little recruiting conversation. Your Texas Longhorns have notched a couple of big recruiting wins already this week, picking up a commitment from the number one linebacker in the class of 2026 with Tyler Atkinson, and of course, four-star defensive lineman James Johnson flipping from Georgia. Both of those happened on Tuesday. And let me tell you, it's been the buzz of SEC Media Days here at the College Football Hall of Fame. Folks all around SEC country have been paying attention to what Texas has been doing. I mean, everyone has been talking about it. There's been a lot of good news already. The good news could be getting even better this weekend. Five-star athlete Derrek Cooper from Hollywood, Florida. He is set to announce his commitment on Sunday. Cooper is listed as an athlete on most recruiting sites, but he's expected to play running back when he gets to college. He is the second-ranked athlete in this class, also the second-ranked player in the state of Florida this year, and a top 30 player overall for the class of 2026. We've talked about Derrek Cooper a lot on this show, and most of the conversations have been pretty negative. Why? Well, Derrek Cooper visited 5 schools this summer. Texas wasn't one of them. And usually when you don't get a visit in the summer before senior year, you don't get a commitment. Well, Derrek Cooper was originally scheduled to commit back on July 12th, 5 days ago. He pushed his commitment back 8 days to the 20th, this Sunday, and that caught my attention, right? It told me, number one, Derrek Cooper hasn't made up his mind, but also number two, another school has potentially entered the chat in this recruitment, and it sounds like Texas is that school. Another thing that caught my attention, even before the delay decision was announced, Derrek Cooper was spotted at a local football camp in his home state of Florida wearing a bunch of Texas gear. Now, that doesn't always mean something, right? Guys get free gear from schools that are recruiting them, and the gear that they get is usually awesome. I wish they would send some of that to my place. They're going to get the gear, and they're going to wear the gear. I would do the exact same thing. But the fact that he was wearing it, despite visiting 5 other schools and seemingly not having Texas as a finalist just a few days before announcing his commitment decision, that made things feel a little different versus the times where you just see guys wearing other shirts. And sounds like maybe there was some truth to that theory. Georgia, Miami, Florida State, and Ohio State have been the teams most linked to Cooper over the past few months. He visited all 4 of them in the month of June. Again, he's from the state of Florida. Kind of explains why FSU is in the mix despite going 2-10 a season ago. But as it stands right now, 3 days away from this decision, this feels like another Texas-Georgia battle. Stop me if you've heard that one before. And also, as of right now, this thing is trending Texas. Now, things can change. You never want to assume in recruiting. And 3 days is an eternity in college football recruiting nowadays. And maybe Georgia is so pissed about losing Tyler Atkinson and James Johnson to Texas that they sort of ramp up a full-court press, maybe sweeten the NIL deal a little bit for Derrek Cooper so they don't get got by the horns again, right? It'd be 3 times in 1 week that Texas would be stealing somebody that Georgia really, really wanted. But I'm telling you, there's a lot of buzz surrounding Derrek Cooper to Austin. This would be a huge get for the Longhorns. There are a few similarities between the Derrek Cooper recruitment and the Tyler Atkinson one that we just saw end in Texas's favor. Remember, Texas was really going after 3 linebackers in this class. It was Xavier Griffin, Braden Rouse, and Tyler Atkinson. Griffin committed to Alabama. Rouse committed to Tennessee last week. Atkinson was that last one left in the sort of big 3 linebackers that Texas wanted. Once those other 2 guys committed elsewhere, the Horns ramped things up, and they did what they had to do to get Atkinson to pledge. Now you look at running back, KJ Edwards, Xavier Crowell, the other 2 top-flight tailbacks that Texas was going hard after, they both committed elsewhere. Edwards to A&M, Crowell to Alabama. Cooper feels like the last of the proverbial big 3 at running back, at least for Texas. There are no other running back offers that Texas has to uncommitted players at this moment for the class of 2026. So since Cooper's the last of the big 3, does Steve Sarkisian and company feel the need to do a little bit more? And whatever it takes to make this one happen too, plenty of reason to believe that the answer is yes. Again, considering that it's not just Texas people, but it's folks from all over the nation who feel like Texas is right now the team to beat with this battle. This would be a huge win for the Longhorns and a huge win for new running backs coach Chad Scott, who, I know this is unfair. It's his first year, hasn't coached a game, and he came to Texas in the middle of a recruiting cycle. It's never easy for anyone to have immediate success when they have to come in halfway during a cycle and build up new relationships with players who had previous relationships with the previous coach. But he hasn't had the best start to his Longhorn recruiting career. This would make everything feel a hell of a lot different. And Texas has been crushing it with running back recruiting as of late. Tashard Choice did a tremendous job bringing in top flight talent from around the nation. The Horns have been bringing in basically 2 running backs in every single class under Steve Sarkisian. They have none committed right now. Cooper would be the first, and be a damn good way to start the tailback class for Texas. And it's another out-of-state running back potentially joining the team. Bijan Robinson, C.J. Baxter, Christian Clark, Jarrett Gibson, James Simon, all of those dudes came from out of state. And, they've all made or will make a pretty big impact on this Longhorn football team. So it's a trend that's been a good one for UT, and it's a trend that very potentially is going to continue this weekend with the announcement coming for Derrek Cooper. We'll talk more about this one tomorrow. We'll see what transpires over the next 24 hours or so. But how about that? Slump? What slump? Feels like ages ago now where we were talking about Texas struggling and seemingly missing out on just about everybody that it was going after on the recruiting trail. It was a rough couple of week stretch. And look, we talked about it. We admitted it. It was not fun for a while being a Texas recruiting fan. But this week has made things a heck of a lot better, and they made things feel a heck of a lot different. A 5-star from the state of Georgia, a high 4-star from the state of Florida that you stole from Georgia because he was committed there, and then another 5-star from the state of Florida, potentially all committing in the same week. If you get that in an entire cycle, you're pretty happy with those numbers. But to get all of those guys in the span of, what would it be, 5 or 6 days, Tuesday to Sunday, yeah, life would be pretty good for the University of Texas and Longhorn fans everywhere. 3 little birds, my friends. 3 little birds. All right, we'll take your thoughts. Comment below. What's your confidence level in Derrek Cooper choosing the Horns on Sunday? Oh, man, how big of a get would that be at an important position for the Texas Longhorns? Comment below. All right, let's shift gears here. We've got a few more takeaways from what Steve Sarkisian had to say in Atlanta on Tuesday. Speaking of running backs, we have an update on C.J. Baxter and his recovery from his season-ending knee injury a year ago. We will get to that up next right here on Locked On Longhorns. Oh, but first, a word for our friends at FanDuel. Summer sports in full swing. You've got the Open Championship going on right now. You've got the second half of the Major League Baseball season getting going this weekend. You've got plenty of high-stakes soccer action happening. And before you know it, football season will be here. There's no better way to get in on the action than with our friends at FanDuel and FanDuel.com. Your friends are on vacation. They're hitting the pool. They're hitting the lake. They are missing out on the sports, and they are missing out on plenty of opportunities to make a lot of money with our friends at FanDuel. The website and the app are super easy to use. They've got new contests and competitions every single day. They've got live in-game betting as well. Hey, the Open Championship already started. Day one's in the books. Who cares? You could still get in on the action for the weekend with our friends at FanDuel. And right now, they are offering $150 in bonus bets. Yeah, that'll work. All you have to do, head over to FanDuel.com. You make a new account, place a $5 bet. If that bet wins, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets just like that. We love our friends at FanDuel. Once again, check them out, the FanDuel app or at FanDuel.com. All right, welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. Still broadcasting from here in the ATL. Of course, Texas Day was on Tuesday. We spent a lot of time during yesterday's show talking about the big takeaways from the Longhorns contingent who made the trek to the ATL. Got a few more thoughts on some of the things that Steve Sarkisian had to say. He addressed the mass media for about 30 minutes on Tuesday, but he also had a little bit of a breakout session with some local media. I don't have sound for some of the things that Sark said, but we do have some quotes from what Sark told the Austin and Central Texas folks who cover the Texas Longhorns. And there were three things that stood out to me about a couple of players on this 2025 Longhorn team, but also just the overall team as a whole. So we'll start with this one. I teased a CJ Baxter update. Here is a quote from Coach Sark about CJ Baxter's recovery from injury. Quote, I think CJ is coming along. We had a nice visit here about 2 weeks ago about just kind of where he was at. There's always going to be days when you're coming off a significant injury like his where he feels great and looks great. And then there's other days where he may be a little frustrated because he's not quite where he wants to be yet. And that's okay. Like I told him, we've got a long season to play. And the last thing I want to do is throw him out there when he's not all the way there. I know he can mentally play at an extremely high level. He's exactly on track of where we would hope he would be right now. He's doing everything we're asking of him. Training camp, that's the next phase, end quote. Training camp, of course, a couple of weeks away. Matter of fact, 2 weeks from today, Texas fall camp will start as they ramp up their preparations for the 2025 season. That's some coach speak at the start of that, but obviously the back half of that from Steve Sarkisian is what I pay most attention to. He's exactly on track of where we would hope he would be right now. He's doing everything we're asking of him. Training camp, that's the next phase. So we didn't see CJ Baxter in the spring. It was a little disappointing, but a little bit expected. You really don't want to re-aggravate a knee injury in spring football. You really don't want to risk rushing a guy back. Look at Jonathan Brooks. Jonathan Brooks obviously tore his ACL in the final game of his Texas career and gets drafted by the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers perhaps bring him back too quick. One of his first games coming off of injury, he re-tears the same ACL, and boom, all of a sudden he's got to miss another year and a half. So I know that's not a Texas-specific example because one of those injuries happened in the league. Still, case in point, you don't want to rush somebody back, especially when you have other horses in the stable, right? I mean, you've got Jarrett Gibson. You've got Trey Wisner coming off of a 1,000-yard season. You've got Christian Clark. Speaking of guys coming off of an injury, Christian Clark way ahead of schedule. The fact that he was able to be pretty close to a full participant in spring ball despite a full tear of his Achilles last fall, that's incredibly impressive. You've got James Simon. You've got Ricky Stewart. Again, you have other really, really talented running backs to where you don't feel like you're going to need CJ Baxter to be 100% in the first game of the year. Now, would you love to have him? Yeah, especially considering who you're playing in that first game. But remember, Texas was banged up at running back going on the road at Michigan in week 2, and the Longhorns still had plenty of success running the football with a lesser proven stable of running backs. I think Texas can absolutely win that game, even if CJ Baxter doesn't play, or even if CJ Baxter is, not a huge factor because he's not quite 100%. So I think Texas does have the luxury of easing Baxter back into the lineup, but maybe they won't have to. Maybe everything's going to look good in training camp and CJ is going to get 100% cleared and he'll be all systems go when the Horns go to the shoe. And, man, what a weapon he can be. At about 230 pounds, he is far and away the biggest tailback on this Texas roster right now. Think about the red zone struggles, the goal line struggles, and well, I don't have to remind y'all about what happened the last time Texas was at the goal line against the team that they're about to play here first in 2025. Having a big body back like C.J. Baxter would make a difference for sure. So it goes without saying you'd love to have him. But again, I feel like Texas has enough depth in that running back room to where they'll be okay. But it is exciting to hear that C.J. Baxter is doing everything right. Number one running back recruit in America a couple of years ago. We saw flashes of greatness in his freshman campaign in 2023. The hope is we see a lot more of those, more than just flashes. We want to see consistent greatness from CJ in 2025. All right, next quote from CJ Baxter, from Steve Sarkisian. He was asked about the depth of his defense and what he expects from that side of the football this year. He said, quotes, "I think this year, now more than ever, is probably our deepest defensive roster. We've got great depth in a multitude of guys that can go in there and play at a high level, which, as we all know, in Austin in September and early October, you need that," end quote. You need depth. Obviously, these college football seasons are longer than they've ever been, and Texas has every aspiration of playing 16, maybe 17 games this coming year. So making sure you can keep your guys fresh over an incredibly long season, that is paramount. And then Sark talking about September and October. Yeah, I mean, that San Jose State game, the home opener, week 2, 11 a.m. kick. That's going to be hot. And then you've got a 3:15 afternoon game in week 3 against UTEP in Austin. And then you've got a Sam Houston game. That's at night, but it's still Austin in September. So the temps are going to be very hot. There's going to be some scorchers for Texas early in the year. And even though you might look at those opponents and say, well, it's no big deal, you want to make sure that you're getting guys some reps. And you should be able to get guys some reps in those games. Number one, you get them some on-field experience, and hopefully find out what you have with your younger guys to see if they can help you in SEC play, but also you're just keeping your most important players fresh. So having that depth, having guys that you could turn to, not only in non-conference play, but over the course of the entire season, that matters. And you go out and get 5 defensive tackles from the portal. You bring in Brad Spence to add some depth to your linebacking room. You recruit the way you've recruited in the secondary with all of the talent you have back there and a couple of key guys coming back. I mean, I agree with Sark. I don't know if this is the most talented defense that he's had because the last 2 have been pretty damn good. I don't know if you quite have the top end talents that you have had, but the depth, it's everywhere. It's at every single position on the Texas defense. And, having that rotation, especially up front, those big guys tend to tire out quickly. It's a lot of weight to be carrying in 90 and 100-degree days in Central Texas. You need to have that. So I love hearing Sark's confidence in the depth. It's not just the first-teamers that he feels good about, but those second and third unit guys. It's a great thing to hear. And last but not least, one more quote from Steve Sarkisian. I keep moving around. I'm sorry. I don't know why I've got ants in my pants today. Last quote from Coach Sark on Brandon Baker, the presumed starter at right tackle. Quote, "In year 2, he's a very talented guy when he arrived, and he's finding his way. I feel for some of these high-profile players, especially up front, because everyone wants to say, well, Kelvin Banks came in and started week 1, and the rest is history. Well, we were in a little different situation when Kelvin arrived as opposed to where we are today. Brandon's been on a great trajectory, proud of the work that he's putting in. It's important to him. It matters, and you can feel that. I think he's got a very bright future," end quote. So, yeah, look, Kelvin Banks, a day 1 starter at Texas, a 3-year starter at Texas. He was amazing. But Sark's right. Like, Texas didn't really have a choice. Like, Kelvin Banks was far and away their best option at left tackle in 2022 in his first year. I don't think Brandon Baker was, a better option than Cam Williams last year. Cam Williams got drafted, had a nice season at Texas, was a 6th-round pick by the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, he made more sense to start than true freshman Brandon Baker, even though Baker was a 5-star. So I don't think Longhorn fans are like holding that against Baker, and they're like, oh, he must not be good because our last real big 5-star offensive lineman started right away at tackle, and Baker couldn't, so maybe he's not as good. Like, I'm not sitting here telling you to expect Brandon Baker to be Outland Trophy winner like Kelvin Banks, but I do think he's going to be really good, and I think he has to be really good. He made the list of my 10 most important players for the Longhorns in 2025. You can't have a big drop-off in offensive line play. And Brandon Baker, obviously one of those new starters, one of the 4 new starters for Texas up front, playing a very, very important position at right tackle. He has to be really, really good. And look, I just praised Cam Williams, so hopefully this doesn't sound like I'm dunking on him. I think Brandon Baker could potentially, if things go right, be an upgrade. Hopefully Brandon Baker knows the snap count a little bit more and is a little less handsy and grabby as Cam Williams was at times last year. But again, you can't have some big step back from the offensive line as a whole. Obviously, Brandon Baker, your expected presumed starter at right tackle, he is going to be a part of that. So, yeah, you hope he's the next Kelvin Banks, to where 5-star offensive line, one of the best in the country, a guy who was a huge recruiting win when it happened. You need Brandon Baker to have a good year, and you hope he's the next great O-lineman at Texas. All right, so those are 3 extra quotes from Steve Sarkisian. We'll probably have more to get into tomorrow, but we'd love to get y'all's thoughts on what Sark had to say and what I had to say about Steve Sarkisian's comments here in Atlanta. We've got 1 segment to go on a Thursday show. This is something I've heard way too much this week. Way too much. And I'm tired of hearing it, and it's getting ridiculous, and we're going to hear it more this year, and it's just getting out of hand, and I'm sick of it. So we're going to rant about it a little bit next on Locked On Longhorns. All right, final segment. It's Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. The Texas Longhorns have an easy schedule. Oh, if we had Texas's schedule, we'd be in the playoff too. How much did the Longhorns have to pay Greg Sankey to get that schedule? Wow, the SEC really did Texas a favor in their first 2 years of the league, didn't they? I've heard some version of those sayings and questions at least 24 times this week. Everybody thinks that Texas had some sort of cupcake schedule in 2024, and everybody thinks that Texas has another cupcake schedule in 2025. And any success that the Longhorns have this year is only because they were given a gift by the Southeastern Conference. Kind of cracks me up for a number of reasons. Number 1, because it's so ridiculously false. Number 2, because for years, all of us heard about every team in the SEC being so good. And there are no weeks off in this conference. And yeah, that's cute that you can win the Big 12, but it's just different here. It just means more. Our worst teams are better than your best teams. We heard that for years. And now Texas has the best regular season record in year 1 in the SEC and makes it to the conference title game. And it's only because they played a bunch of nobodies. That's great. That cracks me up. And number 3, by the way, there are multiple teams, a number of teams that have easier schedules than Texas does in 2025. And even some of their fans and media members are talking about how Texas's schedule is so soft. Oh, man, the amount of goalpost moving by SEC homers and Texas haters, their backs have to be hurting at this point, right? Right? Texas has to play at Ohio State and at Georgia this year. Those are probably the 2 toughest games that you could play in this sport right now. Those 2 teams have combined to win 3 of the last 4 national championships. They've won 12 combined national titles in their history. Ohio State's a definite blue blood. Georgia is obviously making a strong case with what they've done under Kirby Smart. Both of those teams are going to start the year in the top 5, and Texas has to play both of them on the road, and apparently the Longhorns have an easy schedule. Right. How's this for an easy schedule? According to ESPN, the Longhorns have the 4th hardest schedule in America this year, behind only Florida, Vanderbilt, and Oklahoma, ahead of every other SEC team and ahead of every other team in the country. That's not I don't work for ESPN. I'm not making that poll. I'm not putting that together. I know counting is tough at times for some of these SEC fan bases, but number 4, that sounds pretty tough to me. Another thing worth bringing up with the Longhorns 2025 slate, there's only 2 teams in the league with only 3 home conference games this year. Florida is one of them. Who's the other one? You guessed it, Texas. Because the Red River Shootout is considered a home game for the Horns this year, Texas only gets 3 home games at DKR in 2025. The other 14 teams in the league, they all get 4. Sounds like Greg Sankey really loves Texas, huh? Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Texas has the toughest conference schedule in the league. We don't. There's no Alabama. There's no LSU, no Tennessee, no Ole Miss. Like, they're all those teams are quality teams that aren't on the schedule this year. And getting Arkansas and Mississippi State and Kentucky and Vanderbilt in the same year, yeah, you take that and run. And it's one of the reasons why I've been saying this year feels like a great opportunity for Texas to win the SEC. But didn't Vandy beat Alabama last year? Kept them out of the playoffs. Didn't Kentucky beat Ole Miss last year? Kept them out of the playoffs. Didn't Arkansas beat Tennessee last year? Like, are those teams only bad when they played Texas? I don't know. The goalpost moving to me is just out of control. I get it. It's nothing new. People hate Texas. They always have. They always will. But, like, at least come up with something better and smarter than saying this Texas schedule is weak and that's the only reason they're good. What are we doing here? It's ridiculous. So brace yourselves, Longhorn fans. If we're back here in Atlanta in December, and if we're back in the playoff again, remember, it's only because we're playing a bunch of junior high teams. That's the only reason that Texas is going to be good in 2025. Fourth hardest schedule in America. Bunch of cupcakes. Oh, man. Some of these people crack me up. All right, rant over. Show over. Do you agree with me? Comment below with your thoughts. That's going to do it for a Thursday edition of the program. Really appreciate y'all. If you've made it this far, number one, thank you. Number two, please remember to like, leave a comment, share, subscribe, rate 5 stars, all of those great things. Make sure you turn your notifications on as well so you're always informed when we drop new content. Really appreciate y'all making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Bets show with my man Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers. They are your one-stop shop for all of your sports betting needs, expert analysis, game picks, and the lock of the day. They've got you covered with it all. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I'll be back in Austin tomorrow, but more takeaways from SEC Media Days, more recruiting conversation, never a dull moment on the 40 acres, and we have you covered. That's going to do it for today's show. Until next time, horns up, mics off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.